Have you ever seen a headline so insane you just thought, no way this is real? Like, twins with different fathers, one bride marrying 9 men, or priests holding a wedding for 2 frogs, and then later divorcing them.
But here's the part we don't think about. Some of these stories aren't jokes. Today, we're breaking down 5 viral relationship stories the internet loves to twist, exaggerate, or completely misunderstand. A father raising twins who later discovers only one of them is actually his. 2 men who genuinely believed they could share the same wife. A ritual frog wedding that somehow had to be undone. A bride accused of repeating marriages just to vanish with the money. And a couple who made a horrifying discovery about their own relationship way too late.
These sound like memes, but they didn't feel like memes to the people living through them. So let's start with the one that feels almost impossible. 2 twins. Same mother, same birthday, not the same father.
Imagine tucking your twin kids into bed every night, completely certain they're both yours, until one test proves that only one of them is. This happened to a family in Dallas, Texas. At first, nothing seemed unusual. Justin and Jordan were twins. Same birthday, same home, same parents.
But as they grew older, the differences started to stand out. One of the boys looked exactly like their father. Same eyes, same facial features. The other didn't look like him at all.
At first, it was easy to ignore. Genetics can be unpredictable, right?
But things get intense over time, and at one point, the father asked for a DNA test. The result shocked even the lab. One twin was his, the other wasn't.
The condition is extremely rare. So rare that the lab ran the test again just to be sure. But the result didn't change. The mother finally confronted something she hadn't fully faced. During the time she conceived, there had been another man. And just like that, a normal family became something far more complicated. Because now, on paper, only one child belonged to him. But as strange as this story is, the next one takes a completely different turn. Because when 2 men discovered they were in a relationship with the same woman, they didn't fight. They made a deal. In a coastal town in Kenya, 2 men, often reported as Sylvester Mwendwa and Elijah Kimani, had both been in a relationship with the same woman, a widow with children, for years. Each of them thought he was her main partner, until the truth came out. She hadn't chosen between them, she had chosen both. When the men finally realized what was happening, it didn't end quietly. They argued, they fought, and eventually the chaos spilled out into the street, loud enough that even a community policing officer got involved.
This should have been the breaking point. The woman kept telling them she loved them both and couldn't imagine a life without either one. And here comes the actual twist. Instead of forcing her to pick one, the 3 of them did something almost nobody expected. They sat down together and made a deal.
On paper, that contract was strangely simple. The men promised not to threaten or attack each other over their wife.
They agreed to follow a kind of roster, respect each other's days, share responsibility for her children, and live in peace instead of jealousy. But outside that small circle, the reaction was brutal. Local media framed it as a bizarre wife-sharing deal. Talk shows mocked it. Comment sections exploded.
Things got so intense that one of the men said he lost his job after the story went public and even had to go into hiding because of the backlash.
Legally, Kenya's laws clearly allow men to take multiple wives, but a woman with 2 husbands? That wasn't something the system was built to recognize. Enough with human marriage, let's take a look at a different one.
Because in India, during a drought, people didn't just pray for rain. They held a full-blown wedding for 2 frogs, and later, a public divorce when the rain went too far.
In 2019, parts of Madhya Pradesh, India, were facing a serious drought. Crops were failing, water was running low, and hope was starting to dry up. So people turned to something older than science, ritual. They arranged a traditional wedding, not for 2 people, for 2 frogs. There was a priest, garlands, chants. A crowd gathered to watch as the tiny bride and groom were lifted and celebrated like real newlyweds. The belief was simple. please the rain god Indra, and the skies will open. And for a moment, it felt like it worked. Rain came, then it kept coming and coming.
What started as relief slowly turned into panic. Fields flooded, homes were damaged, entire areas were overwhelmed. Reports suggested thousands of houses were affected, with hundreds collapsing completely. The same people who had prayed for rain were now asking a different question. How do we make it stop? So they went back to the same idea. If a wedding could bring the rain, maybe a divorce could take it away. So this time they brought 2 clay frogs. Another ceremony, another crowd. But this time, instead of tying them together, they separated them. A public divorce, performed in front of cameras, with the hope that ending the union would stop the rain. Of course, no legal system recognizes a frog marriage, but that wasn't the point. And while that story was driven by belief and tradition, the next one is driven by something much colder, because this woman turned marriage into a scam.
But before we dive into that story, if you've made it this far, why not subscribe? If you want more strange but true stories like this in your feed, tap like, hit subscribe, and tell me in the comments which story you'd have believed was fake if you only saw the meme. Now imagine you live in a small village. You finally get married. The wedding goes well. Family is happy. You start making plans for the future.
And then one morning, you wake up and your wife is gone. Not just gone, but the cash is gone, the gold is gone, and so is everything she brought into your life. This is what reportedly happened in Umapur, a village in Maharashtra's Bid district. A man named Yogesh Shinde believed he had finally found a partner. Like many others, he was under quiet pressure to settle down. So when agents approached him with a proposal, it felt like an opportunity. They promised to arrange everything: a bride, a wedding, a future.
Money was exchanged, lakhs of rupees spent, and on the surface, it all looked real. Relatives gathered, rituals were completed. Photos were taken of a smiling couple beginning a new life. But that life didn't last.
Within weeks, the bride disappeared. No warning, no explanation, just gone. And the shocking part is, when Yogesh started digging, he found he wasn't the first. According to local reports and police complaints, the same woman, identified as Bharati Gumaste, had allegedly married at least 8 men before him, following the exact same pattern every single time. A quick arranged marriage through middlemen, a short period of married life, then a sudden disappearance, along with money and valuables. What looked like a personal tragedy started to look like something much bigger, a fake marriage racket.
Agents reportedly targeted men in rural areas who were struggling to find brides. They used urgency, social pressure, and tradition to push fast decisions, and then, allegedly, reused the same bride again and again.
By the time Yogesh went to the police, this wasn't just his story anymore. It was part of an ongoing investigation. Police finally arrested the bride Bharati Gumaste. In a video statement, she claimed she wasn't the mastermind at all. She said she had been forced into these marriages, threatened, and told her family would be killed if she refused. At that point, the story stopped being simple. Because now, the question wasn't just who committed the crime, but who was really behind it.
Police have registered a case at Chaklamba police station and are now investigating a wider network of agents and matchmakers who may have been running the operation. You might be surprised by this story, but trust me, the most unsettling story in this entire video is still the last one. 2 people who believed they'd found their soulmate, only to discover they were actually family.
It starts like a completely normal love story. In 2008, a young man meets a woman. They click instantly. They talk, they date, they turn into that couple everyone expects will eventually get married. 3 years later, they do. In 2011, they officially become husband and wife. That same year, they welcome their first child. Then, in 2015, their second.
Life moves forward the way you'd expect. By the time they cross a decade of marriage, they've built what looks like a stable, ordinary life. 2 parents, 2 kids. a shared history going all the way back to their early 20s. Nothing unusual.
Until one day, they decide to make this video.
For 10 years, we've been together for 13 years. We just recently found out we're brothers and sisters.
The internet reacts instantly. People replay the clip, zoom in on their faces, point out similarities, ask how no one in their families ever noticed. The video doesn't explain exactly how they found out, but you can imagine it. A DNA test, a document, a name appearing where it shouldn't. One piece of information that rewrites everything. And they weren't the only ones. There are several cases where people have a similar story. Just a family trying to understand what their relationship even is, after the truth changed it forever. On the internet, these become quick captions and outrageous screenshots. But behind each headline are real people trying to make sense of love, faith, money, and identity when everything suddenly twists. Which of these stories hit you the hardest? Let me know in the comments. And if you want more strange stories like this, don't forget to subscribe.